Claire Mitchell sat frozen, her fork halfway to her mouth, when the words cut through the late summer laughter like a blade. If you disappeared tomorrow, no one would even notice. Amanda Caldwell's voice rang out over the table, casual, almost bored, like she hadn't just gut-punched another human being in public. The laughter that followed wasn't cruel in tone, but it was devastating in effect. Her mother-in-law Patricia giggled behind her linen napkin. Richard, the family patriarch, chuckled without even looking up. And worst of all, Eric, her husband, smiled, took a sip of his IPA, and said nothing. Claire blinked. The sounds around her, the clink of silverware, the pop of a champagne cork, the buzz of late-afternoon cicadas, became muffled, like she was watching the scene through thick glass. She slowly put her fork down, her fingers trembling. 7 years of enduring these micro-attacks, these elegant humiliations masquerading as family banter. This was just the most blatant. She looked up, locked eyes with Amanda, and lifted her hot dog in a mock toast. Challenge accepted. It had started as a seemingly normal day, or at least what passed for normal in the Caldwell household. Claire had spent 3 hours the night before baking her late grandmother's strawberry shortcake from scratch. She knew they had caterers. She knew Amanda would bring some $90 imported tiramisu that Patricia would proudly place center table. Still, Claire brought the shortcake every year because, just once, it had earned an unsolicited compliment from Richard. This year, she even bought a dress specifically tailored to Patricia's vague, casual elegance theme. Light blue, sleeveless, modest but fitted. She curled her hair, added a touch of lipstick, and dabbed on perfume Olivia had gifted her last Christmas. It was her best version of fitting in. Eric barely looked at her. He was glued to his phone, handling last-minute logistics for his upcoming business trip to Tokyo. "Don't forget," he said as they walked out the door. "Dad's showing off that new smoker he imported." "Pretend to care, okay?" Claire forced a laugh. "Wouldn't dream of doing otherwise." The Caldwell summer barbecue wasn't just a family gathering. It was a social parade. Business partners, neighbors, minor local politicians, all of them milled about the pristine lawn of the colonial estate, clutching designer drinks and complimenting Patricia's tablescapes. Claire moved through the crowd with her dessert in hand, receiving polite smiles and brief nods. No one asked her about her work. No one even remembered that she had once run her own boutique design firm before becoming Eric's wife. In the kitchen, Patricia spotted her hovering by the door. "Oh, Claire, you didn't have to bring anything," she said with a practiced smile. "We've got La Petite Fleur handling all desserts." Claire smiled tightly. "Just thought I'd contribute something personal." Patricia gestured vaguely to a shelf near the pantry. "You can leave it there for now, dear." Claire placed her carefully prepared shortcake next to a stack of store-bought cookies someone had likely brought as an afterthought. As she turned to leave, she overheard Patricia whispering to a staff member to make room for Amanda's tiramisu front and center. It stung, but Claire swallowed it. Again. The real ambush came during lunch. She was seated at the main patio table next to Eric's elderly uncle and across from Amanda, who had just returned with her plate of artisanal ribs and coleslaw. Claire, trying to be part of the conversation, mentioned a branding project she'd just completed for a downtown bakery opening next weekend. They wanted something that honored the building's history, Claire said. The neon signage is actually, Amanda cut in. "Oh, that tacky place with the pink lights. Drove past it yesterday. Looks like a cupcake threw up on a brick wall." Claire paused, but smiled. The owners wanted to keep the original vibe from the 1940s. It's meant to feel nostalgic. Amanda sighed theatrically and leaned back in her chair. "Claire, if you disappeared tomorrow, no one would even notice." A beat of stunned silence, and then the laughter. Claire barely heard it. Her ears rang. Her body went cold. She caught Eric's expression, slightly amused, vaguely uncomfortable, but he didn't say a word. That was it. 7 years of trying, of remembering birthdays, of baking that damn shortcake, of pretending to care about wine varietals she couldn't pronounce and vacation homes she'd never visit, of redesigning business cards for Richard's legacy clients for free, of shrinking herself down so they could feel large. She wasn't going to do it anymore. She raised her hot dog, met Amanda's gaze, and said crystal clear, "Challenge accepted." That night, Claire didn't scream. She didn't slam doors or demand apologies. She let Eric fall asleep to CNBC and the soft pings of Slack notifications. At 2:03 a.m., she sat alone in her home office and opened her laptop. The glow of the screen reflected back a face she barely recognized. Tired, dulled, quieted. By 2:47, she had shortlisted 5 apartments in Seattle. By 3:12, she had texted her sister, "Is your sofa still available? Just for a few days?" By 4 hours, she had mapped out her next 3 freelance moves. She wasn't leaving out of spite. She was leaving because Amanda had done her a favor. She had finally said out loud what everyone else only implied. Claire was never meant to belong. The next morning, Eric barely noticed the shift. "Hey, can you send me the login for our joint travel rewards? I need it for Tokyo." Claire handed him the notebook. "It's written on the back page." He looked up briefly. "You okay? You've been quiet since the BBQ." She smiled faintly. "I'm just thinking." "You know how Amanda gets," he said, waving it off. "You can't let her get under your skin." Claire nodded. "Right, I won't." He kissed her forehead distractedly and left for golf with his dad. He didn't ask what she was thinking. He didn't ask what she was planning. He didn't notice the absence beginning to grow inside their perfect house. But soon, he would. If you've ever been overlooked despite giving everything you had, type 1, you're not alone, and you deserve better. The email subject line hit harder than Claire expected. Proposal accepted. Design attribution pending. She reread it 3 times, blinking at her laptop screen in disbelief. The branding concept she had submitted a year ago to Caldwell Marketing, through Eric, as a favor to his father's firm, was now publicly launched. Only, her name was nowhere in the press release. Instead, the statement praised Amber Lyons, one of the newer junior associates, for leading the creative vision from concept to execution. Claire's breath caught. She dug into the file. Same color palette, same retro modern typography. Even the rising steam logo treatment she'd sketched late at night while Eric snored beside her. It was all hers. But no credit, no mention. She scrolled down to the comments section on LinkedIn, where colleagues congratulated Amber on her visionary rebrand. Claire stared at the screen. Then with an eerie calm, she whispered, "So that's how it is." The month before, she'd left everything behind. She packed only essentials: clothes, her laptop, legal documents, old notebooks, and her mother's vintage Polaroid camera. Everything else, the designer kitchenware, the silk scarves, the wedding china, stayed in the suburban cage she had escaped. Olivia picked her up at the Seattle airport with a tight hug and an overstuffed trunk. "I cleared the futon," she said, "and stocked the freezer with frozen lasagna. You're staying until you don't want to anymore." Claire smiled, tears forming despite herself. "Thanks for not asking a single question." "Claire, I've had questions for years, but I figured when you were ready, you'd burn your own bridge. Guess we're here now." The apartment was small, creaky, and perfect. A studio with bay windows that overlooked a street market and a view of the Sound on clear mornings. For the first time in years, Claire had space that was entirely hers. She started small. A new bank account, a prepaid phone. She updated her online portfolios, stripping out anything that had been touched by the Caldwell name. She uploaded pieces from her personal folder, designs she'd done just for herself. Raw, colorful, loud. Unlike anything the Caldwells would have ever approved of. Her first freelance gig came through an old contact, formatting ebook covers for a self-publishing author in Vancouver. The pay was terrible, but the feedback? Glowing. "This is exactly what I wanted. You got it." Those 4 words reminded her why she started in design at all. A week later, Olivia introduced her to Eleanor Shaw, a silver-haired cafe owner with combat boots and a blunt personality. They sat across from each other at a wobbly table surrounded by mismatched chairs and second-hand bookshelves. "I don't care about your resume," Eleanor said, waving off the iPad Claire had prepared. "Show me the stuff you do because you have to." Claire hesitated, then opened a hidden folder on her screen. Doodles, experimental layouts, typography inspired by punk zines and Art Deco labels. Unfiltered, unapologetic, her. Eleanor leaned in, eyes narrowing with interest. There she is. I haven't shared these with anyone, Claire admitted. Eleanor smiled. Good. Now you will. I want you to do my cafe's fall rebrand, but on one condition. Claire blinked. What's that? You make one personal piece every week. Doesn't have to be finished, doesn't even have to be good. Just real. Bring it when you show up for project meetings. Meanwhile, Claire's inbox kept pinging. Eric, at first confused, then angry. Where are you? Come home. I don't get what this is. You're being overdramatic. Just talk to Amanda. You took half the money. Are you serious right now? She didn't respond. Not because she was bitter, because it wasn't worth it. She'd taken exactly what was hers. No more, no less. The rest, she left behind like an old skin. But then came the email from Westwood Creative, a design firm in Seattle. We saw your work on the Rainier Cafe rebrand. We're scouting designers for a national campaign. Let us know if you're available to discuss. The campaign? Sheffield Brands, a subsidiary of Caldwell Marketing. Claire laughed, loud, full belly. They don't even know who I am, she muttered, and that might be my greatest advantage. One morning, Claire sat with Olivia over coffee, screen glowing with comments about Amber's stolen project. You should sue, Olivia said. That's your work. Claire shook her head. It's not about revenge. It's about building something they can't touch. But doesn't it burn? Claire paused. It used to. Now it just sharpens me. That night, she added a new personal piece to her folder, a bold graffiti-style poster with one line in sans serif red. The ones who silence you always panic when you find your voice. She titled it, Week 3, Amber's Applause. But nothing stung quite like the voicemail from Patricia. Claire, darling, this isn't you. We know you're going through something. Eric has been beside himself. Amanda feels terrible about the BBQ. You've made your point, but maybe it's time to come home? Claire listened in silence. Her hands didn't shake. Her eyes didn't water. She deleted the message. Then she called Eleanor. Hey, she said, voice steady. About that menu redesign. I think I'm ready to go bigger with it. Because disappearing wasn't retreat. It was shedding. It was unhooking from a system built to erase her. It was finding space to become someone impossible to ignore. If you've ever had your voice drowned out in the places you gave your all, type 2. Sometimes the only way to be heard is to walk away first. The invitation email landed in Claire's inbox at exactly 6:14 a.m. Subject, Gala Presentation, Sheffield Organic Rebrand, Lead Designer Required on Stage. She reread it twice, half asleep and gripping her coffee mug like a lifeline. Lead Designer. On stage. Publicly. It was official. Her designs, born in a cramped Seattle studio, far from the marble halls of Caldwell Marketing, were about to be unveiled at the Marketing Innovation Gala, an event the Caldwells treated as sacred ritual. She felt her breath catch, because she knew exactly who would be in that room. Richard Caldwell, Patricia, Amanda, and likely, Eric. They wouldn't know she was part of the project, yet. Westwood Creative had handled all correspondence. Sheffield Brands had merely been the client, a subsidiary passed down like an afterthought. But now, Claire was the face of the campaign. She stood before the mirror in her hotel suite, barely recognizing the woman in emerald green. Her stylist, an old friend of Olivia's, had insisted she wear something unexpected. You need to look like someone they can't ignore, even if they try, she'd said. The result? A sleek, tailored jumpsuit that hugged her body in confident lines, her once-long hair now cut into a sharp caramel-highlighted bob, a bold lip color she hadn't dared wear in years. Claire exhaled. You're not walking into their world, she told her reflection. You're walking into yours. The gala venue was a restored 1920s theater, candlelit with strategic lighting and minimalist floral arrangements. A string quartet played near the bar as waitstaff floated by with tiny hors d'oeuvres. Within 10 minutes of arriving, Claire had already handed out 4 business cards and discussed augmented reality packaging with a boutique cosmetics founder from Portland. She didn't even glance toward the door, until she felt the unmistakable change in atmosphere. The air shifted, voices dropped a pitch, and then came the thunderous laugh. Richard. She didn't need to look to know they had arrived, but when she did, her body stayed still, calm, composed. Patricia was in black satin, flanked by Amanda in crimson, and Richard in his signature navy. Eric trailed behind them, thinner than she remembered, his smile tight. Their eyes hadn't landed on her yet. Claire turned back to the bar and ordered a sparkling water. Vanessa? No. Claire, said a voice behind her. She turned. Richard, of course. Well, he said, visibly startled, this is unexpected. Claire smiled coolly. Evening, Richard. You're with Westwood? I'm the lead designer for the Sheffield Organic rebrand. He blinked. Hard. Ah, I hadn't made the connection. Claire tilted her head. Evidently. Richard cleared his throat. Your work has evolved since... Not evolved, she interrupted softly. Just returned to its original direction. A pause hung between them. Then Richard gave a curt nod and walked away. Claire didn't watch him go. She found Thomas, the Westwood creative director, reviewing presentation notes backstage. You good? He asked. Claire nodded. More than good. Let's show them. But just as they turned, Amanda stepped into their path. Oh, she said, eyebrows lifting. No one mentioned you were involved. Claire didn't flinch. Amanda, this is Thomas. Thomas, Amanda Caldwell. Thomas extended a hand. Pleasure to meet you. Claire's been a fantastic collaborator. Amanda's eyes narrowed slightly. Yes, we're... family, Claire responded with silence. Thomas, ever professional, ushered them onward. Amanda's stare lingered, but Claire didn't return it. She had bigger things to face. The presentation was a blur of clarity. Claire spoke about sustainable branding, digital integration, and shelf psychology. She walked the audience through design decisions, why certain color tones communicated organic, how typography could influence buyer trust, how QR codes created a digital storytelling loop. Her voice didn't shake. From the stage, she could see the Caldwells sitting near the front. Patricia, unreadable. Richard, nodding occasionally. Amanda, whispering into someone's ear. Eric, watching her like she was a ghost in a spotlight. But Claire wasn't a ghost. She was the architect. Applause erupted as she stepped down. Dozens of hands reached out. Compliments, business inquiries, even a magazine editor requesting an interview. She had never felt more seen. But the next confrontation came quietly. Eric approached her near the program display table. You look, he hesitated, really good. Claire offered a brief smile. Thank you. I didn't know you were in Seattle. That was the idea. He swallowed. You were amazing. I always knew you had that in you. Claire tilted her head. You didn't act like it. A flicker of guilt. I've been in therapy, he admitted. A lot's changed since you left. I hope so. His voice softened. I miss you. Claire met his gaze. I don't miss who I was with you. Patricia swept in seconds later, a champagne flute in hand. Claire, darling, you were marvelous. What an unexpected delight. Claire held her ground. Unexpected seems to be the theme tonight. Oh, come now. Patricia laughed lightly. Don't be cheeky. We've all missed you. Except when Amanda was joking about erasing me, Claire replied, tone calm but piercing. That seemed to go over quite well. Patricia blinked, her mask slipping. Claire didn't press. She didn't need to. Her presence did the speaking. Later that night, Amanda cornered her near the dessert station. You timed this, didn't you? Claire arched an eyebrow. Timed what? This comeback. This project. You knew it was connected to us. I didn't, Claire said evenly. But I didn't run when I found out either. Amanda crossed her arms. You know Dad's considering pulling the project back in-house. If he does, your work might vanish. Claire smiled. That would be unfortunate, for you. But Westwood has clear attribution clauses. Pulling the campaign would raise legal questions your PR team won't enjoy. Amanda blinked. Claire stepped closer. I'm not the girl you laughed at anymore, and I don't need your approval. but I do keep my receipts. If you've ever walked into a room where they thought you'd stay silent, type 3. Power isn't always loud. Sometimes it's just showing up on your own terms. The Slack message lit up Claire's phone just after she returned from the post-gala workshop. Amanda just presented your design in her deck. No mention of you. Attribution slide left blank. Claire stared at the screen, pulse roaring in her ears. This wasn't just a snub. It was a surgical erasure. In a public session filled with press, peers, and potential partners, Amanda Caldwell had taken Claire's work and passed it off as a faceless team effort, conveniently avoiding any credit to Westwood or Claire Mitchell. So much for that awkward compliment in the hotel courtyard. So much for growth. Claire sat down hard on the edge of the conference room's empty bench, her fingers tightening around the arms of her chair. For a brief moment, the old familiar ache returned. That heavy throat-clenching sense of you will never be enough for them. Then something broke. Not with fury, but with clarity. That evening, Claire made a call to Westwood's legal advisor. "Do we have any clauses on public attribution for non-pitch uses?" she asked. "Yes," the advisor replied crisply. "Especially when the material is presented outside of NDA conditions. Want me to escalate?" "Not yet," Claire said. "I'll give them one chance to do the right thing." The closing dinner took place at the rooftop of the Marriott, the same venue the Caldwells used to host their annual post-gala private cocktail hour. Claire arrived early, seated with the Westwood team, fielding more congratulations from guests who'd seen her earlier presentation and now wanted quotes, consults, and commissions. But from across the room, she could feel the tension. The Caldwells had arrived, and they knew she wasn't leaving quietly. Patricia approached first, all pearls and poise. "Claire," she said in a tone too smooth to be sincere, "how lovely to see you again. The salmon is excellent tonight." Claire offered a polite nod. "I'll be sure to try it after the presentation issue is corrected." Patricia blinked, almost imperceptibly. "I beg your pardon?" "I believe Amanda forgot to credit Westwood Creative, and myself, while presenting work clearly protected by contract," Claire said, voice soft but firm. Patricia's smile thinned. "I'm sure it was just an oversight." "I'm sure legal will find it fascinating either way," Claire replied evenly. She didn't need to raise her voice. Her restraint was the sharpest weapon in the room. Eric found her later, near the dessert bar. "You were incredible," he said quietly. "I mean it." Claire nodded but didn't thank him. "I've been following your work," he added. "You're everywhere now. That bakery collab? Genius. The cafe murals? Stunning." She let the silence hang before replying. "You know what's wild, Eric? Everything I've accomplished in the last year came from the parts of myself your family told me to tone down." Eric looked down. "I didn't stand up for you. I know that now." Claire softened. "I don't hate you, but I outgrew you." He nodded slowly. "I figured. I just wanted to say it out loud." She placed a hand briefly on his shoulder. "That's more than I expected. Thank you." Later, Amanda approached, predictably. "A word?" she asked, already leading Claire toward a quieter corner of the rooftop. Claire followed. Amanda turned, arms folded. "You're really going to lawyer up over a slide deck?" "No," Claire said, tilting her head. "I'm going to remind you that erasing someone in a room full of professionals is a move that backfires harder now than it did a year ago." Amanda scoffed. "I didn't erase you." "You removed attribution. That's not an accident. That's a strategy." "I was showcasing trends." "You were showcasing control." Amanda's jaw clenched. "You think I haven't changed?" Claire leaned in, her voice almost a whisper. "I think you've changed just enough to fear me now." A beat of silence. Amanda broke eye contact first. On her way back to her table, Claire passed a group of up-and-coming creatives. One woman leaned over. "I just want to say, your talk yesterday, it made me rethink how I define success. You didn't just present, you owned the room." Claire smiled genuinely. "Thank you. That means more than you." By the end of the dinner, Westwood's account manager had received a formal apology email from Sheffield's VP of Marketing. Public correction was promised, Attribution would be reinstated in all digital copies and recorded decks. Amanda hadn't sent the email, but the damage had been contained, Claire's voice had been heard, and backed by contract, professionalism, and most importantly, presence. Weeks later, Claire was back in Seattle. The rain came steady through the cafe windows as she met Eleanor for their usual Wednesday check-in. "I heard the Sheffield campaign got picked up by 2 retailers already," Eleanor said, sliding a warm mug toward her. "And that the Caldwells blinked." Claire grinned. "They blinked so hard they hit send on an apology at 10:43 p.m. Eleanor laughed. "That's what happens when people bet against someone who's already rebuilt from the wreckage." Claire nodded. "What they buried almost buried me. But the soil they used? It was fertile. I just had to plant the right seeds." A week later, Claire signed a lease on a studio space near the waterfront. It wasn't massive, but it had light. It had height. It had room to breathe and room to grow. She pinned one of her personal pieces to the wall first, the one from Eleanor's cafe project, the one with the line, "Power isn't always loud. Sometimes it's the refusal to be erased." If you've ever been written off, pushed aside, or erased, but kept showing up anyway, type 4. Because visibility isn't just about being seen, it's about refusing to disappear.